Family is supposed to be your safe space, the people who know you best and protect you the hardest, but sometimes the deepest wounds don't come from strangers, they come from blood. And one of the hardest lessons in life is learning that betrayal from a sibling can cut deeper than anything else. It is a betrayal not just of trust, but of innocence, of memories of childhood laughter and promises you thought would never be broken. And there are certain betrayals so cruel, so calculated, that they change the relationship forever. The first is when they use your deepest secrets against you, because no one else had access to those fears, to those confessions, to that rawness. Only they did. And when a sibling takes what you told them in vulnerability and twists it to destroy your character, to tarnish your name, or to gain advantage, that's a betrayal. You can never unhear, never unfeel, and never fully recover from. The second betrayal is when they stand beside your enemies and watch you. When a sibling becomes a silent spectator, or even worse, an active participant in your humiliation. It's not just betrayal, it's abandonment. Because in that moment, you realize you are more alone than you ever imagined. And that kind of loneliness, it shakes your soul. It rewrites your definition of family and makes you question every moment you trusted them to be on your side. The third betrayal is when they laugh at your pain, dismiss your struggles, and mock your tears instead of lifting you when you are down. They treat your hardship like entertainment. They find comfort in your suffering. And that's not just cold, that's cruel, because love, even between siblings, should come with compassion, not competition. Then there is envy, the quiet poison that becomes deadly when your sibling sees your success, not as inspiration, but as a threat. And they don't clap when you win. They don't support when you rise. They sabotage your growth with whispers, with doubt, with subtle jabs. And that's when you realize they don't want to share the spotlight. They want to turn it off and keep you in the dark. The fifth betrayal is manipulation, when your sibling uses your kindness, your guilt, or your sense of loyalty as a tool to control you, to make you sacrifice your own well-being for their comfort, and they dress it up in guilt trips and expectations. But what it really is exploitation. The sixth betrayal might be the worst, when they go behind your back and poison your relationships, especially with your parents or other siblings, when they twist facts, misrepresent you, and paint you as the villain just to be seen as the hero to others. And when you walk into a room and feel the shift in energy, the looks, the false, the doubts, the distance, you know what they've done. And it leaves a scar that never quite fades. And lastly, the betrayal of celebration, when your sibling lights up at your failure, smiles when you fall, and somehow feels more joy in your losses than in your victories. That's when you finally understand that not every sibling is family, and not every bond deserves forgiveness. Forgiveness is a powerful thing, but it is not owed, especially when the wound is fresh, the pattern is repeated, and the apology never comes. And while it's noble to try and rise above, not all betrayals are meant to be overlooked. Some are meant to teach you who truly deserves a place in your life, because peace is not pretending it didn't happen. Peace is choosing who gets access to your heart, and not all siblings qualify anymore. And that's not bitterness, that's wisdom. That's not hatred, that's healing. And that's not revenge, that's self-respect. When someone you called family, someone who sat beside you at the dinner table, someone who shared your childhood and your memories, takes your secrets and uses them as weapons, it cuts in a way that is difficult to describe. Your secrets are a reflection of your vulnerability. They are not just words or stories. They are pieces of your soul, handed over in trust and faith. And when a sibling takes those secrets and shares them with others, in order to shame, belittle, or ruin your reputation. That is a betrayal that goes beyond hurt. It is a violation of everything sacred in a relationship that should have been safe and protected. It teaches you that not everyone who knows you truly values you, and it reminds you that some people only hold your truth so they can one day use it against you like a loaded gun, ready to fire when you least expect it. And the damage it does is not just social or emotional, it is spiritual, because once your trust is broken at that level, you begin to question every connection in your life. You wonder who else might turn against you, who else is pretending to be on your side, and who else is storing your pain as ammunition. You replay the conversations, the late night talks, the childhood moments when you thought you were safe, and you realize they were taking notes, not because they cared, but because they saw an opportunity to hurt you later when it suited them. Maybe it was during an argument, maybe it was in front of others, maybe it was through gossip whispered to mutual friends or family members. But however it happened, you felt it like a blade, not just in your back, but in your heart. And what hurts most is not just the betrayal itself, but the realization that someone so close, someone you defended, supported, and maybe even sacrificed for, was capable of such calculated cruelty. You trusted them with your flaws, with your fears, with the things you would never say out loud to anyone else. And they turned those things into weapons. They turned your confessions into curses, and they turned your closeness into a trap. You may try to confront them, you may try to explain how much they hurt you, but often people who betray like this lack the self-awareness or empathy to understand the magnitude of their actions. They might dismiss your pain, they might justify their behavior, they might even try to flip the script and make you feel guilty for being upset. And in that moment, you realize the relationship is not just damaged, it's dangerous, because anyone who sees your pain as leverage does not deserve your presence, and anyone who finds joy in your suffering is not your sibling in spirit, no matter what blood says. Healing from this kind of betrayal takes time, it takes boundaries, and it takes an honest look at what you are willing to tolerate in your life. Moving forward, it might mean walking away, it might mean limiting contact, it might mean starting over emotionally and rebuilding your sense of safety brick by brick. But whatever it takes, you owe it to yourself to protect your peace and your privacy. Your secrets are sacred, and anyone who desecrates that does not deserve another chance to do it again. Your truth is not theirs to use, and your pain is not theirs to perform. Never let guilt convince you that forgiveness means silence or access. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is remember who broke your trust and never give them the chance to do it twice, because healing begins the moment you say enough and mean it with your whole heart. When someone you called family, someone who sat beside you at the dinner table, someone who shared your childhood and your memories, takes your secrets and uses them as weapons, it cuts in a way that is difficult to describe. Your secrets are a reflection of your vulnerability. They are not just words or stories. They are pieces of your soul, handed over in trust and faith. And when a sibling takes those secrets and shares them with others in order to shame, belittle, or ruin your reputation, that is a betrayal that goes beyond hurt. It is a violation of everything sacred in a relationship that should have been safe and protected. It teaches you that not everyone who knows you truly values you, and it reminds you that some people only hold your truth so they can one day use it against you like a loaded gun, ready to fire when you least expect it. And the damage it does is not just social or emotional, it is spiritual, because once your trust is broken at that level, you begin to question every connection in your life. You wonder who else might turn against you, who else is pretending to be on your side, and who else is storing your pain as ammunition. You replay the conversations, the late night talks,
The childhood moments when you thought you were safe and you realize they were taking notes, not because they cared, but because they saw an opportunity to hurt you later when it suited them. Maybe it was during an argument, maybe it was in front of others, maybe it was through gossip whispered to mutual friends or family members. But however it happened, you felt it like a blade, not just in your back, but in your heart. And what hurts most is not just the betrayal itself, but the realization that someone so close, someone you defended, supported, and maybe even sacrificed for, was capable of such calculated cruelty. You trusted them with your flaws, with your fears, with the things you would never say out loud to anyone else, and they turned those things into weapons. They turned your confessions into curses, and they turned your closeness into a trap. You may try to confront them, you may try to explain how much they hurt you, but often, people who betray like this lack the self-awareness or empathy to understand the magnitude of their actions. They might dismiss your pain, they might justify their behavior, they might even try to flip the script and make you feel guilty
for being upset. And in that moment, you realize the relationship is not just damaged, it's dangerous, because anyone who sees your pain as leverage does not deserve your presence. And anyone who finds joy in your suffering is not your sibling in spirit. No matter what blood says, healing from this kind of betrayal takes time. It takes boundaries, and it takes an honest look at what you are willing to tolerate in your life moving forward. It might mean walking away. It might mean limiting contact. It might mean starting over emotionally and rebuilding your sense of safety brick by brick. But whatever it takes, you owe it to yourself to protect your peace and your privacy. Your secrets are sacred, and anyone who desecrates that does not deserve another chance to do it again. Your truth is not theirs to use, and your pain is not theirs to perform. Never let guilt convince you that forgiveness means silence or access. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is remember who broke your trust and never give them the chance to do it twice. Because healing begins the moment you say enough and mean it with your whole heart. When a sibling who is supposed to be part of your support system chooses to side with outsiders, to isolate you, humiliate you, or leave you vulnerable, it creates a type of betrayal that is profoundly difficult to process, because the pain is not only in what they did, but in what they refuse to do. They refuse to stand by you. They refuse to defend you. When lies were told, they refused to hold your hand. When the world turned cold, they allowed strangers or distant relatives or people with no understanding of your bond to come between you, to poison the space that was once sacred, to fill your relationship with doubt, with distance, with damage that often cannot be undone. And what makes this betrayal so deep is that it reveals how fragile loyalty can be when convenience or ego gets involved. When you face conflict outside your family, you expect your sibling to be someone who at least listens, someone who gives you the benefit of the doubt, someone who remembers your heart, even when they do not fully understand your actions, but when they not only believe the worst about you, but amplify it, when they take part in the conversations that tear you down instead of seeking the truth, when they enjoy the comfort of belonging to the crowd instead of the courage of standing with their own blood. That is when the betrayal becomes personal, and it becomes permanent. The feeling of abandonment in those moments is more than emotional. It is existential, because it forces you to question your worth to the people who should know you best. You may start to recall all the times you stood up for them, all the times you protected their name, defended their mistakes, or stood alone on their behalf. And now, in your moment of need, you find yourself alone, facing people who do not know you, but who suddenly seem more connected to your sibling than you are. You watch them laugh at jokes made at your expense. You hear their silence when others speak against you. You see their passive acceptance of your pain. And you begin to realize that this is not about a single moment. This is about a pattern of choosing everyone else over you, of needing validation from others so badly that they sacrifice their own family for it. This type of betrayal often leaves you feeling like you were never truly seen, never truly valued, and never truly loved. Not in the way you thought, because love shows up when it is hardest to give it. Love defends even in doubt. Love does not require perfection. It requires presence, but they were not present. They were not brave, and they were not loyal. And now you are left holding the weight of their cowardice, trying to make sense of a relationship that no longer feels real. Because if they could turn on you this easily, were they ever truly with you to begin with? Moving forward from this kind of pain means accepting that some people will never be what you needed, even if they were supposed to be. It means understanding that family is not always determined by blood, but by behavior. And it means drawing a line, not out of spite, but out of self-respect, because your heart is not a battleground, and your soul is not a place for fair weather loyalty. Deserve people who will stand beside you when it counts, who will ask questions before they pass judgment, who will remember your heart before they listen to hate. And if your sibling cannot do that, then it is okay to let go with love from a distance, to wish them healing from afar, and to remind yourself that your worth is not diminished by their betrayal, but revealed by your refusal to stay where you are not honored. When a sibling secretly competes with you instead of celebrating you, it becomes one of the most subtle yet corrosive betrayals in a family dynamic. At first it may not be obvious. You might share your wins with them, excited to be seen and heard, and hoping to celebrate together, only to notice that their smile doesn't quite reach their eyes, or their congratulations feel delayed or forced. You might catch the slight shift in their tone when others praise you, sarcastic remarks disguised as jokes, or the moments they downplay your efforts in front of others. Little by little you begin to feel that what should be a bond of encouragement is actually a quiet battlefield, where love is replaced with rivalry, and connection is replaced with competition, and it leaves you not only confused, but deeply hurt. This kind of betrayal is difficult to process because it hides behind the mask of family love, and it manipulates your emotions in a way that makes you second-guess yourself. Over time, you start to feel guilty for your success or hesitant to share your joy. You begin to shrink in your own light, hoping it will make them more comfortable. You start censoring yourself, avoiding subjects that might trigger their jealousy. And you do this not because you want to hide, but because you still care. And that is the most painful part. Your loyalty to them keeps you from fully embracing yourself. Their insecurity becomes your limitation, and their competition becomes your silence. They might never say it out loud, but you feel it when they constantly try to outdo you, or when they dismiss your goals and dreams as trivial or lucky, when they suddenly want to pursue the same path as you, not from inspiration, but from a need to keep up. When they offer support, laced with backhanded compliments, or subtly point out your failures to others as if they are trying to balance the scale. These actions may seem small, but they chip away at your spirit, because the one person who should have cheered for you now sees you as a threat instead of a teammate, and that shift changes everything. What's more painful is how this hidden rivalry can make you feel isolated from others in your family, especially when the sibling works behind the scenes to turn people against you by planting seeds of doubt or spreading half-truths about your intentions. They may try to rewrite your story to cast themselves as the victim or the hero and position you as arrogant, selfish, or ungrateful. And if others believe them, you are left alone
defending yourself against a narrative that was carefully crafted by someone who knows your vulnerabilities, someone who used to be your friend, your confidant, your sibling. Eventually, you realize that continuing to play small will never make them feel big, and suppressing your growth will never fix their broken self-image. So you must reclaim your voice and your right to be proud of who you are. You must accept that you cannot heal their insecurity by sacrificing your progress, and you must understand that true family celebrates each other's elevation, because real love does not compete, it completes. Letting go of the need for their approval might be one of the hardest things you do, but it is also one of the most necessary. It doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you start loving yourself more. It means setting boundaries so that their jealousy cannot invade your joy. It means being kind without being naive. And it means walking in your purpose without guilt, even if that means walking alone for a while, because your light was never meant to be dimmed. It was meant to shine. And those who truly love you will never fear that light. They will reflect it and rise with you.
When a sibling betrays you by lying about you to others, especially family members or close friends, it becomes a wound that reaches deeper than ordinary misunderstandings, because this type of betrayal is not accidental. It is deliberate and calculated. It is done with intent, whether rooted in jealousy, resentment, or the need to manipulate the narrative. Their lies can damage not just your reputation, but your relationships, your peace of mind, and even your self-identity. They twist facts, bend stories, or create completely false scenarios that cast you in a negative light. And often they do this while pretending to be your biggest supporter in public, maintaining an image of innocence and concern, while privately sowing distrust, confusion, and division. You begin to notice strange behavior from people who once treated you warmly. You feel the shift in their tone, the guarded looks, the awkward silences that follow your entrance, and slowly you discover that someone has been speaking about you in ways that do not reflect the truth. You try to trace it back. You try to understand how the words you never said, the things you never did, became part of your story. And time after time, the trail leads back to someone who should have protected you, someone who grew up beside you, someone who knew your truth and chose to distort it for their own gain. This kind of betrayal doesn't just damage how others see you, it damages how you see yourself, because it forces you into a position where you are constantly defending your name, trying to clean up a mess you didn't create, trying to restore trust that someone else broke. And the emotional exhaustion that comes from that can be overwhelming. It begins to feel like no matter how much good you do, how honestly you live, how much you explain, the shadow of their lies follows you like a storm cloud, threatening every relationship you try to nurture. What's even more devastating is when their lies divide the family, when people take sides without hearing your truth, when bonds are broken because of things that were never real, and suddenly the foundation of your family feels unstable. The home that should have felt safe starts to feel hostile, and you are left standing in the middle of a battlefield created by someone who should have stood beside you, not against you. You may feel tempted to retaliate, to expose them, to shout your truth from the rooftops and make everyone see what really happened. But part of healing is recognizing that your peace is worth more than your revenge, that clearing your name cannot always come at the expense of your own sanity, that sometimes the loudest truth is spoken in your silence, in your consistency, in your refusal to become what they accused you of being. And while you may never receive the apology you deserve, or see the full truth come to light in the way you hope, you will begin to rebuild not just your image, but your inner strength. You will learn to place your trust in people who earn it, and to keep sacred the parts of yourself that deserve protection, not exposure. You will become wiser in who you confide in, and more deliberate in how you respond to conflict. Eventually, those who matter will see through the lies, because truth has a way of enduring, while deception eventually collapses under its own weight. And the sibling who betrayed you with falsehoods will find that trust once broken is not easily rebuilt, and love once tainted by lies is not so easily restored. You are not what they said you are. You are who you choose to become. And in choosing truth, in choosing dignity, and in choosing yourself, you take back the power they tried to steal from you. When a sibling chooses to betray your trust by exposing your secrets to others, especially with the intention to embarrass or harm you, it cuts deep in a way that is hard to describe, because this is not just a moment of poor judgment or a misunderstanding. This is a clear decision to take something personal, vulnerable, and sacred, and turn it into a weapon that they hand to the world without hesitation. And the worst part is that you never saw it coming. You trusted them with pieces of your soul, because you believed that if anyone would understand you without judgment, it would be the person who shared your childhood, your memories, your blood. You confided in them during moments of weakness. Maybe you shared things you had never told anyone before. Things you were ashamed of, things you were afraid of, things you had not yet healed from. And you did so because you believed that your truth would be safe with them. And for a while, it wasn't until one day they used your pain as a punchline, or your secrets as currency. In conversations you were never a part of, they told your story, not to help you, but to gain favor, sympathy, or attention from others. And the moment you discovered this betrayal, it felt like the ground beneath you shifted, like you could no longer tell where safety ended and danger began. It leaves you feeling exposed, humiliated, and deeply confused, because it wasn't just what they did, but who they were to you. They weren't just any person, they were someone you allowed close, someone you expected to protect you, even when you couldn't protect yourself. And that's what makes this kind of betrayal so devastating. It attacks not just your privacy, but your ability to trust, and in many cases, it changes you. It makes you guarded, cautious, hesitant to ever be that open again. You start to second-guess everyone around you, wondering who truly has your back, and who is simply waiting for an opportunity to use your vulnerabilities against you. And you may even begin to blame yourself for sharing too much, for being too open, too trusting, too hopeful that someone would honor the truth you gave them in confidence. And that kind of self-blame creates emotional walls that are hard to tear down, even with time. What makes this worse is when the sibling who betrayed you refuses to take responsibility. Maybe they deny it. Maybe they minimize it. Maybe they turn it around and accuse you of overreacting. And suddenly the focus shifts from what they did to how you are reacting, and you are left feeling like you're being punished twice, once for being betrayed, and again for having the nerve to feel hurt by it. But even though this betrayal is painful and deeply personal, it becomes a defining moment in your growth, because it forces you to reevaluate the boundaries you set and the people you trust. It teaches you the importance of emotional safety and the value of protecting your inner world, not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You begin to realize that trust is not given based on title or blood, but earned through behavior and respect. With time you learn how to heal, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by facing the pain and understanding that their betrayal speaks more about them than it ever will about you. It reveals their lack of integrity, their insecurity, and their need to tear others down, to feel elevated. And as you heal, you reclaim your story, your strength, and your sense of peace. And while you may never forget what they did, you will move forward with clarity and resilience, knowing that you can be both wounded and wise, both hurt and healed, and that your strength lies in how you rise, not how they tried to break you. Sibling betrays you by siding with people who hurt you or harm your reputation. It leaves a scar that cuts through more than just your relationship with them. It strikes at the very foundation of what family is supposed to mean, because siblings are meant to have each other's backs, especially when the outside world turns cold, cruel, or judgmental. But when your own blood chooses to stand with those who cause you pain or tear you down, it feels like an abandonment of the deepest kind. It often starts subtly. Maybe they laugh along with those who mock you. Maybe they don't defend you when others twist your words. Maybe they passively nod when someone insults your decisions or your character. And slowly, you begin to notice that their loyalty is not with you, but with those who wish to see you diminished. And at first you try to excuse it. You tell yourself, maybe they're trying to keep the peace. Maybe they didn't know how to respond. Maybe they just didn't want to get involved. But as time goes on, the pattern becomes undeniable. They're not neutral. They're not silent by accident. They've made a choice. And that choice is not you. This betrayal hits different because it's not just a betrayal of privacy or a broken promise. It's a betrayal of alignment, of connection, of shared history. It's as though they've erased the moments when you stood up for them, when you shielded them from pain, when you chose them over others, and now they're choosing to align themselves with those who diminish your worth and distort your truth. You begin to question the authenticity of your bond with them. You wonder if it was ever real, or if it was just convenient for them when it served their needs. And now that you are in a place where you need them to show loyalty, they have vanished. Or worse, they've turned into quiet supporters of those who want to see you fail. And that realization brings a grief unlike any other, because you are not just losing a sibling, you're losing a version of the past that felt safe and familiar. What hurts even more is the silence that follows, because in many cases, they won't admit what they've done. They won't acknowledge the damage they caused. By taking sides, they'll say things like, "I didn't want to get involved," or "I didn't know what was really going on." But you know you felt it. You heard what they didn't say, and you saw the moments they stood by and allowed others to harm you when they had the power to speak up. And so you carry that weight, the weight of betrayal, the weight of disappointment, the weight of knowing that someone who was supposed to be part of your support system has instead become an accomplice in your pain. And that can be an incredibly lonely place to sit, because it forces you to rebuild your definition of family, not around titles or traditions, but around behavior and loyalty. With time, though, you learn that sometimes the people who share your blood are not the people who will stand beside you. And that truth, while painful, also frees you. It frees you to stop expecting what they cannot give it, frees you to stop hoping they will change it, frees you to create boundaries that protect your heart and your peace. You begin to choose your family, not by birthright, but by behavior, by who shows up, by who defends your name when you're not in the room, by who lifts you when others try to pull you down. And in that choice there is strength, there is healing, there is power, because you are no longer waiting for loyalty where it does not exist. You are building it where it's real. And that shift changes everything. It turns pain into purpose, betrayal into clarity, and loss into growth. When a sibling betrays you by pretending to support you in private, while openly criticizing you or competing with you in front of others, it creates a painful and confusing emotional landscape, because on the surface, it looks like they are your ally. It sounds like they care. It feels like they are in your corner. When you are alone together, they say the right things,
They offer comfort. They tell you. They understand your struggles. They nod and empathize, and even share similar experiences. And in those moments, you believe you have someone who truly sees you, who truly gets what you are going through, and who will protect your name when you are not around. But then something shifts. When you are around other people, their energy changes. They no longer echo the support they gave you in private. Instead, they undermine your confidence with subtle jabs. They make sarcastic remarks. They bring up your failures. They frame your struggles as entertainment or as evidence of your weakness. And you are left standing. They're wondering which version of them is real. And that confusion becomes its own form of pain, because you do not know whether to trust the warm voice that comforted you behind closed doors, or the cold judgment that greets you in public spaces. This kind of betrayal is especially harmful because it erodes your sense of reality. It forces you to constantly second-guess your feelings, your memories, and your instincts. It feels like emotional whiplash as you try to keep up with the dual personas they present, and in trying to understand them, you end up blaming yourself. You wonder if you are being too sensitive, if maybe you misunderstood their intentions, if you are just imagining the contrast. But deep down, you know that you are not making it up. You feel the sting of their words, the shift in their tone, and the way others respond when they choose to highlight your flaws instead of your strengths. What makes it even harder is that when you confront them, they often deny everything they say. You are overreacting. They say they were joking, or that you are taking things too seriously, and their denial makes you question your truth. It makes you feel isolated, because you are now dealing with both the betrayal and the gaslighting that follows. And that combination is devastating, because it strips you of the one thing you need to heal, which is clarity. Betrayal here is not just about the competition or criticism. It is about the false intimacy. It is about pretending to support you while secretly resenting your progress, your dreams, your light. They clap for you when you are watching, but scowl when you turn your back, and you begin to sense that their support was never really for you. It was a mask. It was a performance designed to maintain the appearance of closeness while concealing their true intentions. Over time, this behavior teaches you to listen more closely, not just to words, but to patterns, to tone, to silence. You begin to see through the duality, and it empowers you to make changes. You realize that it is not enough for someone to say they care. Their actions must align with that claim. And if they consistently hurt you in public while comforting you in private, then what they are offering is not support, but manipulation. Eventually, learn to distance yourself, not out of bitterness, but out of wisdom. You begin to limit your access to people who wear masks, who shift based on the audience, who weaponize your vulnerability for their own gain. And that decision becomes a turning point in your life, because it allows you to surround yourself with people who celebrate you consistently, not selectively, who love you out loud, not just in secret. And in making that choice, you reclaim your peace, your power, and your right to feel safe in your relationships. You stop waiting for your sibling to become who you hoped they would be, and you start honoring the truth of who they are. And in doing so, you create space for healing, for trust, and for real love. The kind that does not shift with the wind, the kind that stands firm, whether you are being praised or criticized, because that is the love you deserve, and you no longer settle for anything less.
Thank you for staying with this message until the end. If you've ever experienced betrayal from someone you called family, know that you're not alone, and you're not wrong for how deeply it hurt. You're not weak for walking away, and you're not cruel for setting boundaries. True strength lies in recognizing when something is damaging your spirit, and choosing to protect your peace, no matter who it is. We grow not just by holding on, but often by letting go. So take the lessons, carry the wisdom, and walk forward with your head high, because healing is your right, and wholeness is your destiny.